So we have fundamentally two different types of triangles. You have a right angle triangle and you have a non-right angle triangle. With a right angle triangle, obviously, you can see the right angle. So for right angle triangles, you have a few key formulas. You have a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c is always the longest side, which we call the hypotenuse. And then also you have SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA is based upon three formulas, which are three triangles. So you've got SOH, you always put the middle letter on top, CAH, and TOA. Now, for all of these, if you want to find a side, so for example, if you wanted to find O or H, you're going to multiply or divide. So if you wanted to find, for example, O, you would do sine of the angle multiplied by H. A, you would do cos of the angle multiplied by H. O, you would do tan of the angle multiplied by A. So for example, if you ever want to find the opposite, it's always times, because O is always on top. Now for H, if you ever want to find H, you always need to do a divide, and A can either be times or divide depending on what triangle it is on. Now for this kind of problem, you have to decide based on your triangle what side you want and what side you have. If we have, for example, this triangle and the problem wants us to find the hypotenuse and we're given the adjacent, and this is 30 degrees. The problem is about H and A. Then we see where H and A appears. H and A appears here. Because we want to find H, we always have to divide, and this is because H is always on the bottom. So let's do our division. So to find H, we have to do A, which is going to be 7, divided by cos of 30. And all we would do is we put that into the calculator. So we've decided how we find a side, but also you've got to be able to find an angle. If you've got any questions, please put up your hand. So angle is a little bit different. So if we have a triangle and we have, let's say, this is 6, this is 5, and we want to find this angle here. Let's say this is the hypotenuse, this is the opposite, this is the adjacent. This time, our problem is about the opposite and the adjacent. So we're going to go for the tan triangle. Once we've gone for the tan triangle, we need to decide, well, we want to find tan of the angle. Whenever you're doing the angle, you're always dividing, believe it or not. So what we do is we do tan of the angle, which is question mark, equals O, which is 6, divided by 5. And because we want to find the question mark angle, when we find question mark, what we do is we always do tan minus 1, or arctan on a Spanish calculator, 6 divided by 5. So summarising, you need to make sure that if you want to find a side, you're doing timesing or dividing. If you want to find an angle, it's always dividing and then the inverse. These formulas are not given to you in the exam. Then we have a non-right angle triangle. We have three major formulas. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos A. And then we also have this formula rearranged, which is cos A, which equals b squared plus c squared minus a squared over 2bc. These are what we call the cosine formulas. And then we have the sine formulas. Sine of A over A, sine of B over B, sine of C over C. And then we have a flipped version of this. The flipped version is just putting the numerators on top and the numerators on the denominator on the numerator. Just flip them around. In the exam, please note that you're perhaps only given one of these two sine formulas. You might only be given one in the exam. Check the formula booklet on Hangouts. They're both the same though, you just flip them. So in the exam, if you're asked to find a side or an angle, and it's a non-right angle triangle, there's no right angle, you have to use normally one of these formulas. Now you might ask me, well, what formula do I use? So for cosine, you have two major types of triangle. There are some exceptions, but for cosine you either have side, 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 so all the sides are given, and you want to find an angle. So this formula would be used for finding an angle. Or you would have a formula which is to do with side, angle, side. So I call that a SAS triangle, and that problem we want to find a side which is opposite. So we either use normally a SAS triangle for this formula, and we want to find the side which is opposite, or we have a sus triangle and we want to find the angle. And all you need to do is substitute into the triangle. I'd normally choose those letters from the diagram. I'd ignore the letters in the diagram, cross them out, use your own. Now for the sine one, I think of this as pairs. What I mean by that is if you have a triangle and then you have 7 and 30 and then you have 6 and you have a known, the question might want you to find star, which is fine, but let's say we've got a pair here and then we've got a pair here. If it's about pairs, we are going to use the sine rule. We always put what we want on top or on its own. So this is a side, so we put the side on its own. This is an angle, so we put the angle on its own. Now, if we want to find an angle, we're going to put the angle on top. So this is for finding an angle. We put the angle on top, and then the bottom one is for finding a side. These hint side, angle, angle, side are not given to you in the exam. You've got to be able to look at it and know. Then what you do is you substitute into just two of the parts. The third part is just given to confuse you. You don't need the third part in there. So let's go for the bottom triangle. We want to find question mark. That's an angle. So we're going to do sine of the angle, which is question mark, over 6 equals sine of 30 over 7. And then you just solve that equation. The last step, if you're finding an angle, would be to do inverse sine. So you would do sine of the question mark equals sine 30 divide by 7, and then at the end you would inverse sine the bit on the right hand side. Last but not least, we have one final thing you need, which is to do with non-right angle triangles. Yes?
Can we find that on that bit? Is that recorded?
Yeah, I'm recording all of this.
And you can say,
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Do you mind if I put your voice in it?
Yeah, of course.
You don't mind?
No.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is do one final thing, which is to do with the area of a triangle, which is half AB sine C. This is for a non-right angle triangle. This is when you've got a SAS triangle, or you can make it into a SAS triangle. You've got a side, angle, side. Let's say you've got 3, 25. You just substitute into that formula. So you just say 1/2 times 3 times 5 times sine of 20, and that will give you the area of the triangle. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different kinds of ideas all together.